Hey everybody, my name is Niclas Huschenbeth and welcome to this analysis of the game Levon Aronian against Fabiano Caruana from the first round of the Sinquefield Cup. So let's have a look. Sinquefield Cup, one of the strongest tournaments of the year, featuring 10 players, all absolute top players. And for those of you who remember, I'm sure most of you do, Fabiano Caruana last year managed to win the first 7 games in this tournament. It was one of the most amazing streaks of chess history. So let's see if he's able to start this tournament with a win. Aronian with the white pieces, starting with d4, c4, e6, knight f3, now d5, knight c3, bishop e7, bishop f4, castle e3. This variation is discussed quite a lot. It's a solid option for black and not easy for white to break through here. Knight bd7, and now white decides to play c5 and gain some space on the queen side. And here the two main moves are c6 and knight h5, but Caruana went for the rather, well, not unusual, but this is the third most played move in this position, knight e4, and he probably analyzed this move in depth. Aronian plays rook c1, and already here they're in a position which has not occurred before, and Caruana, I think, decides to go for a risky continuation, which is b6. I'm sure he had prepared this, but honestly I wouldn't feel comfortable playing this with the black pieces. I think a more natural way, or maybe a more safer way would be to play c6 and then follow up with b6 later. Because b6 is allowing c6, and this is really cramping black's position and is limiting his options in the future. Objectively speaking, black is fine, but it's just, I feel like it's easier to play for white and it's easier for black to go wrong. So knight f6, a3, of course preventing any bishop b4, a5, stopping b4 so white is not able to secure his pawn maybe with b4, b5, bishop d3, knight e4, rook c2, now f6, castle, queen e2 first, stopping bishop h6, bishop a6. Black could have played this in the last move, but f6 is also completely sound. Now bishop d6, castle, and now Caruana goes on to expand on the king side by playing g5, which is fine. Asking white to exchange bishops on d6, what he does. Knight takes d6, rook e1, and here maybe the first critical position in the game. Caruana plays a4. Instead he could have gone for immediate action in the center by playing g4 followed by e5. And if white doesn't do anything, black will just close it all, play e4, because on the queen side the position is also closed, so black doesn't have to worry about the queen side a whole lot. So white probably should play e4 to not allow e4 from black, and this is similar to the game in fact. And here black can continue with f5, and after the moves d takes e5, f takes e4, e takes d6, pretty messy, but in the end we come to this position, which seems to be just fine for black. Bishop is going to f5 and the position is roughly equal. So let's see the game instead. a4 having two purposes. For one, preventing b4 from happening, once again not allowing white to stabilize his pawn on c6, and also maybe sometimes having the possibility to bring the rook to a5. Knight e2, and now Caruana plays e5. e4. Once again, not allowing e4 from black. And also white would like to open up the position because the black king is weakened after black has played g5. So this makes a whole lot of sense. And here Caruana played f5. Instead, maybe e takes d4 would have been another good option. Now, if e takes d5, black can simply respond with rook e8, and this seems to be just fine for him. So e5 seems to be the critical move. F takes e5, queen takes e5, and now queen f6. Queen takes d5 check and king g7, and it seems to me that black has equalized. If white plays knight e4 now, we have a long sequence of moves here. After queen takes e4, bishop f5, we get into rook endgame. But it seems to me that this should be equal. Alright, let's go back to this point and take a look at f5, just fueling, or how do you say that, putting more oil in the position. And look at this, there are just so many pawns in the center, what's going on? And white decides to just keep the tension by playing f3. He could have also taken on e5. Now, knight takes e4, f3, and knight c5. This is also quite messy. Knight b1, trying to regroup the knight to c3, and honestly, not sure about the assessment of this position. Quite unclear. But in all these positions, honestly, I would rather be white, because for one, you have this thorn in the flesh on c6, which is really restricting, especially the bishop on c8. And on the other hand, you have the weak king on g8, which is obviously very much exposed, and white has the safe king on g1. So I think it is much easier for black to misstep than for white. So f3 played. Now d takes e4, and that's a mistake. Instead, black should play rook e8. Just once again keeping the tension and putting a rook opposing the queen on the e file. And white should just move the queen out of the e file, play queen f2. D takes e4, f takes e4, and now keep the position closed, because once again the black king is so weak, so you gotta have the position closed. And this is still a mess, of course, but it seems that black is fine. And here, maybe at some point, black has the option to bring the rook into play with rook a5. So let's return to this position. D takes e4. Now f takes e4, and now Caruana played rook a5, but the rook will end up as a sad piece on a5. So this maneuver looks nice at first, but just doesn't work out as Caruana might have hoped for. Instead, e takes d4 would have been a better move, but already white is in the driver's seat here. Rook e8, queen h5, now knight f7, knight f3, and it's just uncomfortable because the black king is so weak. And here it could go on with g4, knight h4. Now black is able to take the queens off the board, but nevertheless he ends up in this position where he's not a pawn down, but the white pieces are just better placed, and the pawn on d4 might fall, and black is under pressure, no doubt. But objectively speaking, this would have been still a better option for black than the game. So let's see, rook a5. Now finally white decides to do something in the center and take on f5. And the point is that after knight takes f5, white has this cute little maneuver here, bishop c4 check, followed by d5, and now just shutting off the rook on a5. Now the rook just looks stupid on a5, not doing anything, not defending upon e5, which is now hanging. And in fact, black should have given this pawn. After rook e8, it's really already lost, to be honest. It's just lost already. So instead knight d6 should have happened. Now queen takes e5 check. Here black can play king h8. I can't really believe it either. White has a huge advantage after that too. Queen f6 would be the alternative. And we come to this endgame where white is up a solid pawn. But black is still holding on. He still has some chances here after a rather forced sequence here. Bishop f5, rook e7 check, king f8, rook ce2. Now rook c5 just hanging on. Rook e8 check, king f7, bishop a2, and black's able to exchange a pair of rooks by playing rook c1 check, but doesn't change the fact that white is up a solid pawn and black is fighting for a draw in this position. But he had to go for that. He had to go for it because after rook e8, the white attack is just blooming. Is that the right word? Flourishing. And it is irresistible. Black cannot put up with it, especially because it's just lacking one rook, which is just on a5 out of the game. By playing knight e4, actually, white has offered a rook exchange, but the remaining pieces will simply chase the black king down, so he doesn't need this rook on c2. Caruana takes the rook. If he goes bishop f5, well, then he's not up any material and the position doesn't get any better either. Queen g4, knight takes g5 is in the air, knight f6. It's just too much to handle. Black king is too weak and all the white pieces are participating. There is no doubt about the white win here. Knight takes c2, knight takes g5. Now white is threatening all kinds of nasty stuff. Queen f7, queen takes h7. So black plays bishop f5, and now just a quiet move. Bring the next piece into the attack, rook f1. So here Caruana played queen f6, and you might have noticed I hesitated a little bit. I was wondering what happens after bishop g6. I think I figured it out. White can play, let's see, what can white play? I was thinking rook f7. Now the point is, after king g8, queen h6 is rather lethal because there's this checkmate, and if black takes an f7, queen takes h7 is checkmate. And now I was wondering again, what happens after bishop takes f7, and just have to figure out the checkmate here. I haven't found a checkmate, but this should be good enough for now. Queen takes h7, king f6, knight e4 check, king e7, and now d6 check. Queen takes d6 is forced to avoid mate on f7, but well, this is all gone too. Knight takes d6, and we have the checkmate coming rather soon. So bishop g6 doesn't work. And well, what else can black do? He played queen f6. If he plays rook f8, white is just swiping off this bishop, followed by knight e6, for example. So Caruana played queen f6, and white already has a choice. He went for knight e6. He could have also played rook takes f5, which would have been even stronger, but it doesn't really matter as long as you take the point home, so it doesn't matter how you win as long as you do win. Here after queen takes f5, knight e6, black can just resign. Rook takes e6, queen takes f5, also hitting this one on c2. And after king f6, knight takes queen takes e8, the white threats are just overwhelming, and it is made in just a few moves. So knight e6 played instead, which is also winning as I mentioned. Rook takes e6, and now rook takes f5. Queen g6, here rook g5 was also just fine, but d takes e6 is also winning. White has regained the material and is up a healthy pawn with another one to come. Knight d4, now e7, rook a8, rook takes e5, rook e8, stopping e8 queen. But now white is up 2 pawns, plus he has a super strong pawn on e7, and that's just it. Rook e4, now knight f5, allowing a nice finish here. Bishop e6, knight d6, bishop d7, knight takes e4, bishop takes e8, king f6, and now bishop g6, hitting the knight on e4, and that's it. Black has to take on e7, otherwise white will queen, and if he takes, then this knight is gone, and white is completely winning, of course. So really good game by Aronian, strong performance. I think Caruana's mistake was the opening choice. I think this definitely contributed to his loss. It's just a difficult position to play. Computer might say it's equal, it's fine for black, but in the game it's a whole different story, and Caruana wasn't able to find the right path, and then Aronian executed a really nice attack with a rook sacrifice. I mean, afterwards it always looks easy, but you saw me calculating some other variations during my analysis, and there's a lot to check, because if you sacrifice a whole rook, you gotta make sure your attack is strong enough. But in this case it was, and Aronian managed to win a really nice game. Alright, thanks for watching. I also analyzed another game, Carlsen against Topalov. It was just a fantastic first round, so if you want to check this one out as well, then just click on the link above. And well, then I'll see you next time. Bye.